Hello and welcome to SEGA News Bits. I'm Barry. With me is George.
Hello, everyone.
And we're going to be talking about a couple things, and they all involve the country of Europe. That's my worst European British. I don't know. It's not even a country. In any case.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to get all the hate comments
No,
right now.
all right. You know what? They deserve that. They brought it on themselves. Anyway, NIS America and Atlus are no longer working together to release games in Europe. The other thing we're going to talk about is, I guess, kind of an update on the SEGA Europe, or lack thereof, publishing in their own country. In all their countries. So first, let's talk about this NIS America thing. So it was announced April 25th that, or at least reported by MCV, that publisher NIS America will no longer be distributing Japanese Atlus titles to Europe. And the reason they gave is that ever since Sega acquired Atlus, and this is from NIS America, they said it's become harder for them to work with Atlus. And this is all coming from their managing director, Takuro Yamashita, and he cited the increasing difficulties, and he pointed at the Sega and Atlus partnership as being the problem.
Sega really Yamashitted him, huh?
Well, that's the thing. It sounds like he's really, Yamashit talking in in this, because I mean, obviously he's burned bridges. I can't imagine Atlus ever being like, you know what, let's work together, actually. But so from now on, Atlus titles will not be published in Europe by NIS America, and I guess also vice versa for America. Though I really wasn't aware that that Atlus was publishing NIS America games. Were you in America?
Not that I know of. I mean, when's the last game they brought out that there was an NIS America game? I mean, they're called literally America in their name. I doubt they need help publishing games in America.
Yeah. But here's a quote from him. He said, and this was dated April 25th, so he said, around 10 days ago, we terminated our alliance with Atlus in Europe and the US. And so I guess there was it going the other way in America. He said, Atlus became very picky about selecting the European publisher partner after it was bought by Sega. And I think they're talking about Atlus, always cherry-picked its EU publishing partner based on who offered the highest minimum guarantee on a title-by-title basis. So basically, Atlus would say, they'd put a quote out, they'd put a call out, and then they get quotes, and whoever was charging the least but could promise the most got the job. And that's totally fair, because you're not going to be like, I'll pay the highest bidder who wants to replace my garage door opener. You don't do that. So if anyone's going to call out Atlus for that, no, because that's just smart business practice. But anyway, ever since the Sega acquisition of Atlus, NIS America noticed that it was very difficult for them to establish an equal partnership with Atlus. So what are your thoughts on this, George?
Atlus has grown as a company. They were a small company. They needed help before doing European games. I think this is them moving maybe in-house publishing in Europe. Maybe having Sega do it. I mean, if Sega is going to do their own games, I know they haven't, which we're going to be talking about. But maybe this is them rethinking their publishing in Europe and trying to do something new. I mean, you can't be doing the same thing when you get bought by a bigger company. It would be like, I don't know, a company that gets bought by Amazon still trying to do their own thing, You have to go through the Amazon account and all that.
Yeah. I mean, I've shared these off air too and on the forums, but I made that comparison where when Disney acquired Star Wars, there were a lot of things in place with Lucasfilm that already existed within Disney. So, for example, Dark Horse was doing the Star Wars comics. Disney owns Marvel, so it makes no sense for Disney to allow Lucasfilm to continue their deal with Dark Horse when they can, support their own company, another company they own. So it's almost like all the money's cycling internally, Marvel pays licensing fees that Lucasfilm collects, and in the end, Disney's winning. And so I think with Sega, it wouldn't make sense for Atlus to farm out their games to NIS America in Europe when SEGA Europe exists.
I agree 100%.
Now the thing is that this this news came out, and it sounds like it sucks, and it might suck, but the thing is we don't know that yet because we have not seen these Atlus titles not release in Europe. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, this is the beginning of something. Hopefully, it's not the end of Atlus games in Europe. Persona titles. The Persona series is very popular. I can't imagine SEGA Europe putting their foot down, or SEGA as a whole saying, nah, no more Persona titles in Europe. I think those are still happening. I just think that they're going to find a different way, either a different partner, or more realistically, SEGA Europe will assist in getting them published. That's my thought, anyway.
One thing that does suck, though, is that NIS America, they bring out some really nice packaging.
Oh,
and it's kind of sad. And it's kind of sad that we're not, the Europeans are not going to have that. And us Americans for like niche titles, I guess, that they wouldn't want to release. Like their Sakura Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Packaging. No, great.
No, I have all the respect in the world for NIS America. I don't mean to put them down at all. They did a fantastic job with Sakura Wars during a period when, SEGA they weren't focused on that. I forgot what was coming out at the time, but it feels like that was around the time when Marvel games were coming out by SEGA, and, localizing the 5th title in a really niche dating sim mech game was not a priority. And thankfully, NIS America released it, and they gave you an art book and a poster, and I think there was a Wii version, there was a PS2 version. It was great.
Like today, the 3D Classics collection came out by SEGA, and it was nice that they had the SEGA decal stickers. Yeah. But I was a little disappointed they didn't have a manual. I really wanted to look at the manual and see what they would put in there. If they even put the interviews they already translated in there, would have been interesting. But yeah, I guess manuals are on the way out, and it's nice that some publishers still do it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think for 3DS titles in general, they stick to the digital manual. Even Nintendo titles, Nintendo developed ones, I feel like they don't really put that much effort in the manual. So, yeah, but when you think about it, and we'll get into the SEGA Europe thing, SEGA of America has done a fantastic job with the packaging of their games. I think the first one was Hatsune Miku Project Mirai DX. That came with VR cards. It came with I think like a little Miku lanyard. And at the time we were like, oh, that's cool. And then I think we've suddenly realized that's the norm now for America. We've got the decal set in the 3D Classics. We've got the Valkyria Chronicles Steelbook case. So can you imagine what they would do for Sonic? Like the next Sonic game in America? They've got to release like an awesome box set. They've got to.
I'm a little excited. It has to have a special edition. Like, let's be honest, they haven't done one of those in ever. And if there's one SEGA game that deserves it or will sell enough of the copies to get it, it's Sonic.
Oh, for sure. Now, let's talk about the SEGA Europe situation. That
which maybe ties in with this. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we're talking about NIS America in their woes with Atlus. Let's talk about SEGA Europe. So, where do I begin? Well, SEGA Europe, we had that campaign that was started by the forums and Sonic Retro, and then it bled through the server, and that's how the internet works. And the articles went up on both Sonic Retro and on SEGA Bits, and it was Take My Money SOE, which was basically the campaign was and is asking Europeans who want games that have released in America to come to Europe to share that hashtag Take My Money SOE and take a picture of the name of the game that they want written down and the physical money sitting there waiting for SEGA Europe to take. And these are games that include, for example, Hatsune Miku, what is that, X?
Project X or something like that.
Project X. It sounds like a
porn movie, right?
Yeah, or something, a young adult comedy. And then, you've got the SEGA 3D Classics collection. Valkyria Chronicles is making its way to Europe. They're getting an art book, I think. But anyway, but right there is an example of SEGA Europe actually releasing a game. But yeah, and so that was the campaign. Amazingly, within like one day, SEGA Europe changed their tune from saying we don't have any information at that time to that they're working on something, or they might have something to announce eventually. I don't know if that's just to make us shut up, or if they actually said, hey, you know what, guys, maybe we should start releasing titles here. I don't know. What's your take on the whole Europe situation right now?
Well, I'm not from Europe, but I don't know what. Did you just drop something? I don't know. I don't really understand what the holdup is. Like, SEGA of Europe's branch was like the most profitable for a while. I guess they were doing great jobs. They do the relic games. I mean, not the relic games, but the creative assembly games. They're launching Total War. I mean, that's more digital, but you would think they would have enough people to get a game printed out for the 3D. I mean, you know, for handhelds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really don't know what the holdup is. I'm really surprised that they didn't announce it worldwide. When they announced it for America, I just assumed it was coming out in Europe.
Yeah.
It's already translated. What else do you have to do?
Yeah. I mean, you know, we're Americans. We've lived through those terrible years where Sega just started saying, hey, Americans don't want Japanese titles. They want licensed Marvel games, and they want really bad remakes of classic Japanese titles, and they want man, what other crap did they throw at us? But then there was that turnover a few years ago, and it took some time. And last year, I will say, was probably the worst year to be a Sega fan because there was nothing except for Sonic Boom. But then all of a sudden, games started to release, and I think Yakuza 5 actually saved 2015. Seriously, that and the 3D Classics titles, maybe just because they were on the 3DS and they didn't cost as much, but you know, those were nice little things to have. But now 2016, being an American, it's awesome, and I feel really bad for the SEGA Europe fans because it now feels like SEGA Europe is doing what SEGA of America was doing not too long ago, where SEGA Europe's now saying, well, us Europeans, you know, we like, that's the worst British accent.
The hate comments, man.
I know, bring it on. You know, they're saying, you know, we like our Total War games, we like our PC games, and we'll give you, you know, the Valkyria Chronicles game because, you know, that's an easy release. But Miku, nah. Sega 3D Classics, nah. Honestly, I think they're just afraid to lose money, and so they don't. But you got to spend money to make money, and I don't think they realize that.
I mean, it's just a physical release of games already released digitally. Maybe they're just happy with the digital sales. I have no idea.
Now, you brought up something interesting when we were talking earlier offline about the translations. Do you think this has to do with all the different countries that they need to cater to?
Yeah, I would say that they would have to translate it in French, but like, my only issue is like I could see why Seventh Dragon wouldn't be making it, you know. But the arcade classic games, do you really need to translate like Lock On? You know what I mean, on Afterburner?
Yeah.
I think even if it was in Japanese, the lettering, which even in the Japanese version is in English, I don't think I would need to know. I could just get on the game and play it. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do it personally. I would just leave it like that. I mean, the Japanese people played it in English.
Yeah. The question is, though, is there a legality there, a legal reason where they can't?
I just don't know. I just assumed that's what it was. I mean, because every time you buy a European game, it comes in different languages. And I've been noticing that even in America now, like if you buy like a Namco Bandai game, it comes in Spanish in the back.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just the way of things now that you have to do a French, German, and other languages to sell it.
Yeah, and I think we're illustrating here that there are still a lot of unknowns, and I think that's what's really frustrating to European fans, because when they reach out to Sega, they say, we have no news at this time. Now, I think what would make them feel a lot better is if Sega gave a reason, and if the reason is, if we put the effort into releasing these games, they might not sell, that's a pretty shitty reason, I think. I think, you know, if the reason is we don't have the funds to translate a big RPG in 4 to 6 different languages, and if we only release it in English, the English population that will buy it is too small to make us want to even spend the money to release it, that kind of sucks, but I mean, at least they'd be giving a reason. So I guess, you know, it's part wait and see, and it's part keep bugging them, because let them know that you do want to buy the games. But yeah, make some noise, share that don't just share the hashtag, but actually take pictures of money that you have and games that SEGA Europe can reasonably or can release, not like Shenmue 8, because
And let us know what you think about NIS America and Atlus's broken relationships.
If you'd like more SEGA news, check us out at segabits.com. And also don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on all our social networks.